Today, you're going to learn how to choose the right oils for your soap. And trust me, I've been there. Going online to your soap making supplier, wanting to choose which oil should I get for my next soap making recipe, and having hundreds of different options and feeling overwhelmed. And let me tell you a story. When I was starting soap making, actually the first ever soap that I made contained palm oil and a bit of beeswax. And then I made it, I was very happy with it. I gave it to a friend of mine and she was like, why would you add palm oil to your soap? This is not sustainable at all. I didn't even know about the environmental concerns that came with using palm oil. So I then switched to something different. And then I saw a recipe online that used cocoa butter and shea butter, and another recipe that used avocado oil and shea butter and coconut oil. So I bought many different ingredients. In the first year of soap making, I wasted a lot of money not knowing better. And I don't want that for you. So today we're going to simplify everything by completely understanding the properties of the different oils and butters and how to group them together, because as you will see, we will create different categories of the different oils, and then it will be way easier for you to make a choice on which oil you want to buy. So I have a master's in chemical engineering, and one of my favorite courses was organic chemistry. And this is where I learned about soap for the first time. I learned about the saponification reaction of oils plus sodium hydroxide equals soap and glycerin. I learned this equation when I was 18 years old, my first class at university, and I was fascinated by it. And what I love to do is that I love to get a bit nerdy about the chemical properties and all the chemical compounds that exist in oils. And what I found out is that a lot of different oils that we see online or on your store, they actually are very similar together. They contain the same fatty acid profiles, and that we're going to talk about today as well. Here's the biggest problem beginner soap makers face. You go online to your soap making supplier and you see avocado oil, babassu oil, jojoba oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, olive oil, coconut oil, shea butter, cocoa butter, and you're like, which one should I choose? And then you end up buying a lot of different things. And then you go online to find a recipe to choose from, and every blog, every video uses different types of oils, and you end up spending so much money on this. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly what each oil does and which oil you should choose for your own goal. Do you want a soap that is suitable for very dry and sensitive skin? Maybe you will want to remove or minimize this. Do you want a soap that feels super creamy in the shower? Maybe you want a soap that contains a lot of this. We're also going to look at how to use Soap Calculator. That is an amazing tool that helps you not only understand how much lye, how much water, how much oils you need to add, but it also gives you a prediction of how your soap will behave and how your soap will look like at the end. This is the most important thing of the video, and this is my whole aim with this YouTube channel. My goal is not for you to only learn how to copy recipes. You know, I've posted a lot of different recipes on YouTube and TikTok with tutorials, but my aim is for you to learn how to design your own recipes and how to understand formulation. Because I can tell you, you should add 30% of coconut oil, but then it's up to you to say, well, you know what? Coconut oil is very cleansing. It adds a lot of bubbles, and my skin is a bit dry, so I would like to reduce coconut oil to 20% instead, because that fits my needs. So I want you to be able to understand oils, understand formulation, and be able to create and design your own recipes. And that's exactly what we're going to try to do today. Fun fact, this is one of the most fascinating things out there. Thousands of years ago, the first soap that was ever made, do you actually know how it was made, the first soap? Let me tell you. The legend has it that there was a shepherd that was going to sleep, and it was in the middle of the night and there was fire. So what he did is that he dripped animal fat on top of the wood ash, and then he woke up the next day and he saw bubbles coming out of the wood ash. So what happens is that wood ash contains potassium hydroxide, and potassium hydroxide reacts with the animal fat to produce soap. Of course, wood ash is very impure, so it contains a lot of different things apart from potassium hydroxide, so you have to do some procedure in order to only get the potassium hydroxide out of it. But luckily nowadays we have the pure compounds, sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, with which we can create soap. Potassium hydroxide usually leads to a more softer kind of soap, softer paste, and usually with potassium hydroxide we also make liquid soap. But with sodium hydroxide we make solid soap because it creates stronger bonds that create this very good solid structure here. Okay, you guys ready to know the properties of all the different oils? Let's go. I'm truly excited for you to understand this, because you will start buying oils and choosing oils not because somebody told you so, because a recipe told you so, but because you understand the properties and how to use them for your own goal. So let's start with one of the most important oils out there, coconut oil. And I used to call this the fun oil. Now, why did I call this the fun oil? Coconut oil contains two main fatty acids in high concentration, lauric acid and myristic acid. Now, when lauric acid and myristic acid react with our lye, sodium hydroxide, they create sodium laurate and sodium myristate. Now, both of these compounds, they are known to create a lot of bubbles. So they are very cleansing. So when you hear coconut oil, I want you to remember coconut oil in soap making equals cleansiness and bubbles. If you're making soap for your loved ones, for your mother, for your sister, and one of them has a very dry and sensitive skin, do you want to use a lot of coconut oil? Yes or no? You probably don't. If you make a soap with coconut oil, it can really dry out the skin of a person who has already very dry skin and sensitive skin. So you might want to lower the concentration to 10% or perhaps remove it completely. And yes, it's totally possible to make soap without coconut oil. It's not like a must ingredient in your soap. Let's take another example. Let's say that you want to make a soap that is suitable for the dishes, to clean the dishes. Then you want something that is super cleansing, super bubbly, to remove all the grease and all the fat off the dishes. And then making a soap with a very high concentration of coconut oil is the right strategy forward. I have a video on that where I'm making soap with 95% coconut oil and 5% castor oil, that we're going to discuss about that soon. Let's go to the next ones. So the next ones, shea butter and cocoa butter. There is a reason why I put those together. Shea butter and cocoa butter, they're very similar butters. They both contain stearic acid and palmitic acid. And when they react with sodium hydroxide, they create substances that give a lot of creaminess to your soap. They give creaminess and structure and hardness as well. So shea butter and cocoa butter, they will make your soap more long-lasting, long-term. Now, how does creaminess look like? This is a soap I made that has 50% olive oil and 50% shea butter concentration. And you can see the lather is actually quite creamy. It doesn't bubble a lot because it doesn't have coconut oil, this soap, but it creates this very nice, nourishing and creamy lather. It gives this kind of like spa-like treatment. So far we've talked about coconut oil, cleansiness and bubbles, shea butter and cocoa butters, creaminess and structure. Now, the reason I put them together is that you can actually substitute shea butter for cocoa butter and vice versa. I used to use cocoa butter for my soaps until my soap making supplier stopped providing it because there was a problem with cocoa butter supply, and therefore I completely substituted the part of cocoa butter to shea butter, and the result is still amazing. So you can still do that, and that's exactly how I want you to think. That's exactly what I want for you, to know exactly the properties of the different oils and butters and how to substitute them, and how to understand that, okay, if I remove cocoa butter completely, that's still fine because I can just use shea butter. No biggie. So let's talk about shea butter. I bet some of you out there are watching this video right now with the aim to perhaps make the soap and sell it. Make a business out of it. And when you make a business, what's very important is consistency. So what you want is that you make this soap right here, for example, that has shea butter, olive oil, castor oil, coconut oil, essential oils, whatever it is, and you want to get the exact same result for your customers each and every time. So one thing you have to make sure of is that you buy materials that are consistent over time. So with shea butter, you probably can go online right now. You will find that there is refined shea butter and unrefined shea butter. Now, refined shea butter is the shea butter that has been refined so that it doesn't have the strong odor that usually raw shea butter has. Unrefined shea butter is just the raw material. And what happens when you buy the raw material sometimes is that you get different composition and different odor profiles from batch to batch, which means that you might buy a shea butter, an unrefined shea butter that can completely dominate your fragrance. And honestly, trust me, I've been there. I once bought shea butter that was unrefined. It smelled like farm. And then I mixed it with a very strong fragrance oil, hoping that everything will be okay. Guess what? It wasn't. And I ruined a whole batch for that. So if you're planning to start your own soap making business, I highly recommend refined shea butter. If you don't really care, also if you don't care about adding fragrance and you don't care about your oils overpowering your scent afterwards, feel free to buy unrefined one. It's up to you. Cool. So far we've talked about coconut oil that gives cleanliness and bubbles. We've talked about shea butter and cocoa butter giving creaminess and structure to your soap. So let's go to the next ingredient. And this is one of my favorite ones. Is perhaps the most popular oil out there for soap making. Guess which one it is? Olive oil. You guessed correctly. So olive oil is high in oleic acid, and what it does is that it gives a lot of conditioning properties to your soap. And you've seen, like, there are soaps like Aleppo soap, Marseille soap, Castille soap. All of them have one thing in common: very high concentration of olive oil. And a high concentration olive oil soap is a soap that is suitable for those who have very sensitive skin and those who want very conditioning properties. But here's the catch, and here's where the grouping comes together. We've talked about grouping the oils in different categories before. So olive oil is high in oleic acid and a bit of linoleic acid. Now, there are also other oils that have high concentration of those acids. This can be sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, jojoba oil, avocado oil, and so on. But what's the difference? So let's say you want to melt avocado oil. Can you replace olive oil with avocado oil? Yes, you probably can, but avocado oil is also extremely expensive. And what avocado oil does is that it gives conditioning properties to your soap, and it also comes with some extra vitamins and antioxidants that might not be there in olive oil. So if you want to add avocado oil, for example, you can add it in low concentrations. So I usually add 5 to 6% because I know that's enough to create a really nice conditioning lather on top of the olive oil. Is it possible to substitute olive oil completely with rapeseed oil, for example, that is way cheaper? Absolutely. And there are soaps out there that are made with 100% rapeseed oil, organic pressed rapeseed oil, and they give a really nice conditioning lather, and they're very long lasting. So soaps that are very high in concentration of olive oil are usually soaps that are very, very long lasting. Here's the catch. If you're making cold process soap and you include a recipe that has a high concentration of olive oil, you might want to pay attention to this. Olive oil contains oleic acid. Oleic acid is a fatty acid that is quite long, quite large compared to other fatty acids we saw before, like lauric acid. Therefore, it takes a lot of time to actually be converted into soap. So soaps with a high concentration of olive oil can take up to a year to cure. I usually cure my soaps that are in a concentration of more than 50% of olive oil for minimum 6 months. Yes, you heard that right. I cure them for minimum 6 months, and in those cases, patience results to an amazing soap that is long lasting and gives a phenomenal lather after a long time. If you use olive oil soap too quickly, I'm sorry to say this, but you will get something that is so disappointing. It will be very slimy and it will literally stick on your hands and it will dissolve very, very, very quickly. So far we have coconut oil equals bubbles, shea butter equals creaminess, olive oil and the rest like sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, avocado oil equals conditioning. So already we've structured our oils into 3 categories, and now let's go to the 4th category. The 4th category is thickness. So we have castor oil, and castor oil is an amazing ingredient. It's an oil that is high in ricinoleic acid, and what ricinoleic acid does is that it combines with sodium hydroxide to produce a lather that is very thick. So castor oil actually goes hand in hand with coconut oil, because coconut oil gives the bubbles and castor oil comes in to make those bubbles thick and fluffy. But here's the catch. A little goes a long way. If you add too much castor oil, you will end up getting something that is a bit sticky. So you might want to make sure you have castor oil up to 6%. If you have more than that, it will be too thick. So 6% concentration is enough to make a soap that has a beautiful, thick and rich lather. So these are the 4 main categories to take your understanding of oils to the next level. Please comment down below if you found this video useful. I really hope you do, and I'm here to answer any questions you have, because listen, I don't want you to waste money like I did the first year of soap making. I don't want you to be overwhelmed in the beginning. I want you to be confident, have a good understanding, and choose your oils based on your goals. Now, if you want to dive deeper, I have an ebook that explains all of that and makes you into a confident soap maker that not only copies recipes but understands formulation and chemistry. And I have a lot of different recipes, from soap for the dishes, for the body, for the hands, for the face, shaving soap. I have shampoo bars, conditioner bars, creams, and so on. I've recently launched it and I've been receiving a lot of great feedback from people saying that they're getting their soap making to the next level, so I hope it can do the same for you. If you're interested, click the link in my bio. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really hope this video inspired you to have a better understanding of oils and butters in soap making. I'm here to answer any questions you have, and looking forward to seeing your results, looking forward to seeing you making your first batch of soap, or your first soap that you are actually gonna sell to someone, to customers. I'm really looking forward to hearing your stories. Thanks a lot, guys. So guys, let's talk about Soap Calc. Soapcalc.net is a recipe calculator. There are a lot of recipe calculators out there. I like to use this one. Now, so I will show you how to use Soapcalc, and what's great about Soapcalc is that not only does it allow you to measure your lye, your water, your oils, etc., but it also gives you a prediction of how your soap will look like. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's check it out. Let's go to recipe calculator. Here you will see it says type of lye, and sodium hydroxide is what will provide a solid soap. Potassium hydroxide will provide slightly softer soap, like a paste, and if you also mix it with a lot of water, it will lead to a liquid soap. Let's take sodium hydroxide for this purpose. Grams, usually a typical starting weight of oil is 1,000 grams. Lye concentration, this basically means how much lye you have and how much water you have in your lye solution. So we set it from 33 to 35%. This is a typical range, and that means that you have 33% lye and the rest, which is 67% water. Superfat, 5%. Superfat is basically the extra oils you add on top of your oils that will not saponify. Those are the ones that do not react with sodium hydroxide. You add this for two reasons. First of all, to make sure that all the lye has reacted and there is no lye left in the final product and it's safe to use. Second of all, because you want to have some extra oils that will add, like pure unsaponified oils, that will add some great properties to your skin. So now let's go ahead and choose our oils. So let's say I'm choosing olive oil, which adds conditioning properties. Then I'm going to head and choose coconut oil, which adds cleansiness and bubbles. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose shea butter, which adds a lot of creaminess to your lather. And I'm also going to go ahead and choose castor oil, which adds thickness to your lather. So one recipe that you can also use is 40% olive oil, 29% coconut oil, 25% shea butter, and 6% castor oil. So I click calculate recipe, viewer print recipe, and let's take a look at this. So here you can see it tells you you have to add 283 grams of water. Then you add lye, 139 grams of lye in the water, never the other way around. You always add lye in the water. And then you have to add your oils. These are your oils. And then it has here this table here. And this table will give you a range of all the different qualities of the soap. Let's take hardness. It says the typical range is 29 to 54. Our recipe is 41, within the optimal range. That's perfect. Cleansing, the typical range is 12 to 22. Our range is 19, so it's actually a cleansing recipe, this one. Conditioning, the same. So you see, we try to fall on these ranges. Of course, if we were to add 100% coconut oil, as I said before, for the dish soap, you would see that the cleansing and the bubbly would be way out of range. And so that gives you an opportunity to predict how your soap will look like before you make it, just by looking at those values. So overall, I'm very excited for you to start. I'm very excited for you to have a better understanding of oils and to stop feeling overwhelmed when going online and trying to find which oil should I buy, because I've been there. I've been where you are right now, and I don't want the same for you. So I'm hoping this video that you invested your time into watching made you slightly more confident when you go out there and do soap making again. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.